Welcome to the deep dive. You know, if you've worked in pretty much any corporate setting lately, you hear this language all the time. Things like cost optimization, efficiency gains, strategic restructuring. It sounds so clean, so professional, responsible even. But today, we're going to dig into this stack of materials you sent over articles, some legal stuff, research papers. Our mission really is to unpack that gap, that hidden space between the polished image and what's actually happening. We want to draw a really clear line between genuine efficiency, making things work better, and, well, illegal labor exploitation dressed up as smart business. So you, listening, can spot the difference.
Yeah, and what's really striking, I think, right from the start is how many big names, famous brands, the ones with the shiny ads, maybe even those best places to work awards, they're not just accidentally falling into this. It seems, based on this material, they're deliberately building these exploitative contract schemes right into their core strategy.
Wow, so it's a financial calculation.
It looks like it.
Yeah.
More like risk assessment than genuine human resources. It's about extracting maximum value, minimizing legal obligations.
Okay, let's unpack that idea, because the sources are pretty clear. There are really two ways companies try to find savings.
Exactly.
There's let's call it the legitimate way. Investing in smarter processes, better tech, maybe workflow optimization, eliminating actual waste. That's real efficiency.
Right. Improving things.
And then there's what the sources call the dirty way.
Yeah, that's a good label for it.
Where the savings don't come from efficiency, but from squeezing workers through, well, shady or outright illegal contracts.
Exactly. Misclassifying people, dodging overtime, denying benefits they should be getting. And it's crucial to understand this often isn't just a mistake or, one bad manager. It's presented here as a deliberate system, a way to cut costs by basically giving workers the absolute minimum protection the company thinks it can get away with.
Okay, so if it's a system, we need to know what it actually looks like. What are the specific red flags people should watch out for in their own contracts or jobs? What's the number one thing that gets companies into big legal trouble here?
Oh, easily misclassification.
Yeah.
Hands down.
Yeah.
This is where they label someone an independent contractor when legally they're functioning as an employee. It's a way to avoid payroll taxes, unemployment insurance, workers' comp, benefits, and critically, overtime pay.
They're trying to push all the costs onto the worker.
Precisely. All the risk, all the costs.
And the key legal test here, the thing that trips them up in court, it comes down to control.
Control, absolutely. Yeah. That's the heart of it. If the company tells you when to work, where to work, provides the tools, controls how you do the job, and importantly, if you can't, subcontract the work out to someone else,
then you're not really independent.
Exactly. You're functioning as an employee, regardless of what the contract says. They want the control of an employee, but the cost structure of a contractor. That's the fundamental issue.
Okay, so misclassification is huge. What else? The sources mention issues with how long people are kept in certain statuses. Temporary abuse.
Yes, that's another big one. Companies will keep workers labeled as temporary or seasonal for, months, sometimes even years.
Years, wow.
Yeah. And these aren't, genuinely temporary jobs filling a short-term need. These folks are often doing core essential work. Think about the main customer service team or the people maintaining critical software. That work isn't temporary. The company always needs it done.
But the temporary label lets them deny job security, deny benefits that normally kick in after a probationary period.
Right. It keeps the worker precarious and saves the company money on things like health insurance or retirement contributions.
And that ties into the next one, doesn't it? Part-time manipulation. That sounds pretty blatant.
It is. It's quite cynical, really. We see examples where workers are consistently scheduled just under the threshold for full-time status, like 39 hours or 39.5 hours a week.
Just enough to avoid triggering benefits.
Exactly. It's specifically designed to sidestep legal requirements for offering health insurance, paid time off, maybe 401k matching, things typically mandated for full-time employees.
It's a numbers game at the worker's expense.
Entirely. Saving the company potentially thousands per employee, but leaving that worker without crucial security nets.
And the last one here, the contract loopholes. The fine print trap.
Yeah, this is more subtle, maybe, but just as damaging. These employment agreements can be incredibly dense, just pages and pages of legal jargon that, frankly, most people aren't going to understand.
And if you need the job.
Right. If you're desperate for work, you sign it. And buried in there might be clauses where you unknowingly waive really important rights. Things like your right to sue in court, forcing you into arbitration instead,
Yeah.
or your ability to join a class action lawsuit with other workers facing the same issue.
Which makes it much harder to fight back later.
Much harder. It isolates the worker.
Okay, this paints a pretty grim picture, but it raises a really important question. Why do people put up with it? If it's so clearly exploitative, why don't workers just leave, find a better job?
That's the crux of it, isn't it? And the sources are just brutally honest here. It boils down to financial desperation. It creates this massive power imbalance.
The stats you pulled were shocking.
They really are. We found data showing like 78% of workers are living paycheck to paycheck.
Nearly 8 out of 10.
Yeah. And maybe even more staggering, 63%, almost two-thirds, couldn't afford a sudden $500 emergency expense.
Wow, $500. That's not a huge amount in the grand scheme, but unaffordable for most.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And employers, well, they know this. They understand this financial pressure. They know that if you absolutely need that next paycheck just to pay rent or buy groceries, the fear of losing your job right now is way more powerful than the distant possibility of maybe winning a lawsuit 2 years down the road.
So immediate survival trumps theoretical rights.
It often does. The urgency of today overshadows the justice of tomorrow.
And there's a second piece to why this keeps happening, right? The enforcement side, or lack thereof, what you call the zero consequences loop.
Yeah, that's a big part of the equation. The agencies responsible for enforcing labor laws, state and federal departments of labor, for instance, they're often, significantly underfunded and understaffed.
Overwhelmed.
Totally overwhelmed. Inspections are rare. Investigations take a long, long time. And here's the kicker. Even when a company does get caught,
The penalty isn't enough.
often, no. The fines can be relatively small, especially when you compare them to the millions the company might have saved over years by, say, misclassifying hundreds of workers and not paying overtime or benefits.
So it becomes a cost of doing business.
Exactly. It's a calculated risk. If saving, let's say, $50 million in labor costs only results in a $5 million fine years later, well, the company's still way ahead financially. The incentive, perversely, is to keep breaking the law until it becomes too expensive.
Okay, so the company might win that cold calculation, but who's actually paying the price? Let's shift to the human cost here, because it goes way beyond just lost wages.
Oh, absolutely. The human toll is immense, and it's measurable. Think about the constant stress of job insecurity, not knowing if you'll have hours next week or if your contract will be renewed. This feeds directly into mental health issues. We see much higher rates of anxiety, depression, and just chronic burnout among workers stuck in these precarious situations.
And that stress doesn't stay at work, does it? It spills over.
Completely. It impacts families. Unpredictable schedules make parenting incredibly difficult. Financial instability puts enormous strain on relationships.
And it traps people economically.
Right. Without stable income, without benefits like health insurance or paid sick leave, how can you save money? How can you invest in training or education to get ahead? You're stuck. It creates these cycles of economic immobility.
It prevents people from building any kind of future.
It really does. And it doesn't just harm the individual worker either. There's a ripple effect.
What do you mean? Like on the community?
Yeah, exactly. Think about it. If major employers in an area are systematically dodging payroll taxes, not contributing to unemployment insurance, not providing health benefits, well, first, workers have less money to spend in local businesses, so the local economy suffers.
Okay.
Then the tax base shrinks, which means less funding for schools, for roads, for public services. And the healthcare system gets strained because you have more uninsured people showing up in emergency rooms, and the cost gets shifted onto everyone else.
So the company saves money, but the community ends up footing the bill in other ways.
That's basically it. The community subsidizes the corporate negligence.
Which brings us back to that hypocrisy gap you mentioned earlier, the public image versus the reality. How do these companies, some of which are winning awards like Best Place to Work, manage to maintain that image while behind the scenes these practices are happening?
It's often done through what you could call a carefully managed dual system.
A dual system.
Yeah, those awards. The criteria they use almost always focus exclusively on the benefits and conditions for the core, permanent, usually salaried employees, the managers, the executives, the engineers, maybe.
Ah, so they're not looking at the whole workforce.
Exactly. They conveniently ignore the large pool of temporary staff, independent contractors, misclassified workers, even if those workers are doing identical essential jobs right alongside the core employees.
But without any of the same pay, benefits, or protections.
Precisely. So the company gets the award based on how it treats its privileged tier, while the exploitation of the other tier remains hidden from that evaluation.
And then there's that other layer, what you called false welfare, the
Here.
superficial stuff.
Oh, yeah. The wellness programs, the motivational posters on the wall, maybe discounted gym memberships or, free snacks in the break room.
Pizza parties.
Pizza parties, right. Stuff like that. It's designed to create a feeling of being cared for. But, those gestures are basically meaningless if the fundamental employment relationship itself is exploitative.
It doesn't matter if you have free yoga if you don't have health insurance or job security.
Exactly. Genuine well-being starts with fair pay, stable hours, respect, and security. Not a discount on a fitness class. It's like trying to treat the symptom worker's stress while actively causing the underlying disease, which is instability and unfairness.
Okay, this is all pretty heavy, but it leads us to, I think, the most important part for anyone listening. What can you actually do about it? How do you recognize it and fight back?
Right. Because change doesn't happen passively.
No. History shows every single labor protection we have now, the weekend, overtime pay, safety regulations came because workers stood up and demanded it.
Right.
Companies didn't just decide to be generous.
Absolutely. It starts with recognizing the science.
So let's just quickly hammer those red flags again.
Yeah.
If you're listening and this sounds familiar, you need to act. Number one, you're called a contractor, but they treat you like an employee, setting your schedule, providing equipment, controlling your work methods.
Big red flag.
Yeah. Number two, you've been stuck in temporary status for months, maybe years, doing a job that is clearly ongoing and essential to the company.
Yep. Temporary abuse.
And number three, your hours are constantly played with, always keeping you just below that full-time threshold where benefits would kick in.
Part-time manipulation, if you see those.
You're likely being exploited.
There's a very high chance, yes. So what do? The first absolutely critical step is document everything.
Keep records.
Everything. Save copies of your contract, any emails or messages about your schedule or work instructions, pay stubs, timesheets, anything that shows the control the company exerts or proves the violations. And crucially, keep these records outside the company's systems. Personal email, hard copies, whatever. Don't rely on their servers.
Good point. Okay, document. Then what?
Second, know your rights. Do some research. Look up federal labor laws. The Fair Labor Standards Act, FLSA, is key, and also your specific state's labor laws, as they can sometimes offer even stronger protections. Understand the rules around minimum wage, overtime, and especially the legal tests for employee versus contractor status in your location. Pinpoint the specific violations.
Okay, document, research.
And third, consult an attorney. Find a lawyer who specializes in employment law. Many offer free initial consultations so you can discuss your situation without paying up front, and a lot of them work on contingency.
Meaning they only get paid if you win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They take a percentage of the settlement or award. This is huge because it means you can pursue a case even if you don't have money to pay legal fees up front. It removes that financial barrier.
And you mentioned earlier there's often strength in numbers.
Absolutely vital. If you know other coworkers are facing the same illegal practices, acting together is incredibly powerful, whether it's filing a joint complaint with a government agency or pursuing a class action lawsuit.
It strengthens the case.
Massively. It shows a pattern of illegal behavior, not just an isolated incident. It also significantly reduces the risk of the company retaliating against any one individual. And frankly, it's what forces big companies to make systemic changes, not just pay off one person quietly.
Okay, so let's talk about the potential outcome. If someone goes through this, consults a lawyer, maybe joins with others, and they're successful, what can they actually recover?
The potential recovery can be quite significant. First, you're generally entitled to back pay.
Meaning?
All the wages you should have earned if you were classified correctly and paid properly. This includes unpaid minimum wage, unpaid overtime, often calculated at time and a half, and sometimes the value of benefits you were denied.
Okay, so getting what you were owed.
Yes. Plus, in most successful employment cases, the employer is required to pay your attorney fees and legal costs. So you don't lose part of your back pay award to cover legal expenses.
That's important.
Very. And then there's something called liquidated damages. If the court finds the employer willfully violated the law, meaning they knew, or showed reckless disregard for whether their conduct was illegal, they can award liquidated damages.
Which is like a penalty.
Exactly. It can often be an amount equal to your back pay award. So essentially, you could potentially recover double your unpaid wages. In some cases, depending on the specific law, it might even be up to triple damages.
Wow. So it's not just about getting paid back, it's about penalizing the company for deliberate wrongdoing.
Correct. It serves as both compensation for the worker and a deterrent for the employer and others.
And these lawsuits, they actually force change sometimes, right? You
Yeah.
mentioned some examples.
Oh, definitely. These aren't just theoretical. We've seen huge settlements that forced major shifts. Like FedEx had to pay, I think it was $228 million to settle claims that they misclassified their delivery drivers as contractors. That forced them to reevaluate their model.
$228 million. Okay.
Microsoft faced major legal challenges over its long-term use of permatemps. Temporary workers doing permanent jobs and had to completely overhaul its system for temporary and vendor staff. Walmart has paid out hundreds of millions over the years for various wage and hour violations, like unpaid overtime or forcing off the clock work.
So hitting them in the wallet works.
It shows that when the violations become genuinely expensive, when the risk calculation changes, the behavior starts to change too.
Okay, so wrapping this up, let's define what genuine corporate responsibility actually looks like in this context, if a company wants to do it right.
It means, first and foremost, accurately classifying all workers based on the legal realities of control, not just convenience or cost cutting.
Fair pay.
Fair compensation for all hours worked, including overtime when it's due. Transparent agreements, contracts that are clear, easy to understand, and don't hide waivers of rights in the fine print. And importantly, providing real, clear pathways for temporary or contract workers who are doing essential, ongoing work to transition into permanent, secure employment with full benefits.
Treat people like actual employees if they function like employees.
Fundamentally, yes. And the final point here, the sort of so what for everyone listening, it's that individual action really can and does lead to systemic change. It might feel like one person can't make a difference against a huge corporation.
But it adds up.
It adds up. Every complaint filed, every lawsuit won, it builds pressure. It shifts the legal landscape. The fight for basic dignity, fair pay, and respect at work truly starts when one person says, no, this isn't right, and refuses to accept exploitation as just the way things are.
And here's maybe a final thought to leave everyone with, something that flips the usual corporate assumption on its head. Contrary to what a lot of executives might think, exploiting workers often isn't even the most economically optimal strategy in the long run.
That's a fascinating point.
Yeah, think about it. Companies known for fair labor practices, for treating their employees, well, all employees, not just the top tier, they often outperform the exploiters.
Why? Because they benefit from higher worker morale, much lower employee turnover, which is incredibly expensive, greater loyalty, better productivity.
And, crucially, they avoid those massive, brand-damaging, multi-million-dollar lawsuits and settlements we just talked about.
Right. So the argument isn't just moral, it can be financial too.
Exactly. Maybe the real efficiency gain comes from treating people decently. The change truly accelerates when breaking the law finally becomes more expensive than following it.